Hi, Katie, and I'm meteorologist Dave Baker here on a Wednesday. It's June the 25th. No active tropical systems out there. Andrea seeing its last advisory issued by the National Hurricane Center late Tuesday night, so we don't have anything out there. That was a quick spin up, got those tropical characteristics, at least according to the National Hurricane Center. So it did become our first named storm on June the 24th, which is one of the later starts to our hurricane season, at least over the last 20 years. Kind of took a look back. And it appears that only a couple of years within the last 20 years where we started later than June the 24th. And I think it was back in 2016. Don't quote me on the exact year as I was trying to go through these numbers here pretty quick, but I think it was July the 1st was where we had our first name system, which was, sorry, back in 2014 is when that happened. So a little bit of a late start. Well, outside right now here in Lafayette, it is another hot one, and we're going to see those heat index values topping out at around 105 a little bit later this afternoon. Current temperature at 88, feels like 96, dew point 73, humidity quite high at 61%. At least locally, other than a giant wasp that looks like it is attacking I-10 at Louisiana Avenue. We don't have any major issues there. Looks like that wasp might be just taking a bath or something like that. And looking a little bit farther out toward the west, skies are partly cloudy. Looks good up in Opelousas, Alexandria, looking at partly cloudy skies as well. All of the showers this time around have been a little bit farther off toward the west, that ridge of high pressure that you might have heard of on the newscasts about the giant heat dome that's been sweltering some of the bigger cities there in the eastern half of the country. Well, that also blocks some of that shower and thunderstorm activity. Yesterday, it kind of backed off a little bit, and that's why we had some pretty good thunderstorms during the afternoon. But today, that ridge is backed in a little bit more, so the flow's kind of coming this way. There probably will be some scattered showers and thunderstorms developing in this particular area, but I think if you leave even farther toward the northeast, you'll probably see a little less coverage of rain. So southwestern sections of the region will see the better chances for rain this time around. But you can see that big ridge of high pressure that's here over the eastern half of the country, and it's been kind of a permanent feature. Bit of an upper trough right in here, and I think that's going to go ahead and drift a little bit farther toward the west as we go into the weekend, which actually might start to increase our chances for rain just a little bit. And for boaters, not a bad day out there either. Winds around to the southeast at 5 to 10 knots, seas running about 1 to 2 feet. So let's get into the tropics here as we start out with the Gulf here, and we are looking at those areas of rain that continue down here around the Bay of Campeche. This has been kind of a permanent low pressure trough that's been there, part of an upper trough as well. So it's been generating a lot of showers and thunder showers out there in the Bay of Campeche, but at this point, we're not seeing any hinting of development. Now, do remember last week, the GFS was kind of keeping some troughiness there over the western part of the Gulf, keeping those showers and thunderstorms going. Now, that's a little bit more of an active area when it just comes to a lot of heavy rain. And then we've also got a tropical wave that's rolling on shore of Nicaragua and Honduras, and that's going to continue to drift off toward the west. And it does look like, just like we're seeing more action out in the Pacific, it looks like more of this here is going to continue to kind of push off toward the west and could bring some more action over there on the Pacific side. Meanwhile, the Caribbean, we're generally looking at fair skies as everything kind of moves off toward the west. There's quite a bit of Saharan dust that's out there right now, and that's going to be kind of an issue when it comes to any developing systems. We still have a bit of an upper trough, though, that's right about in this area right here, and that's going to kind of drift off toward the west as well, toward Florida. And again, that might influence our weather locally as we head into the weekend. Farther out in the tropical Atlantic, of course, Andrea has dissipated. It's going to be absorbed and kind of move off toward the east. You got a couple of decent tropical waves that are out here over the Atlantic, and then you've got a tropical wave here and then right about in there. So those are your major waves that we're kind of looking at moving across the Atlantic and the Caribbean. What in particular, though, has a lot of convection way out here off the African coast. So that's something we'll probably just kind of keep an eye on as it marches off toward the west. A lot of times you do see some decent convection as these roll off the continent, and then they kind of lose some of their punch as they work their way westward across the Atlantic Ocean. So, as far as what we're looking at on the satellite, there really isn't a whole lot to talk about when it comes to any current activity or anything that might be happening in the next several days. And we also got the update of the Global Tropics Hazard Outlook that was issued late yesterday afternoon, and it's still keeping the Atlantic generally quiet going through the 4th of July weekend and also the following week. No tropical cyclone development on the Atlantic side nor on the Pacific side as we go beyond July the 9th. Now, there are a couple of models that might disagree a little bit, but I can't say that there's anything that's really showing up on any of the models here over the next week or two, except for a little bit of a deep trough that's going to be over the eastern half of the country. And that could send a frontal boundary far enough to the south that it could get a low pressure area developing over the northern Gulf or perhaps the western part of the Atlantic. And I'll kind of explain how all those pieces would fit together here in just a little bit. There's a lot of Saharan dust, as you could have seen on the satellite imagery of the Atlantic as well as the Caribbean. So that's really going to choke out anything. If those tropical waves off the African coast can stay pretty far to the south of that Saharan dust, they might have a chance, but really slim to none, none on anything that's moving off toward the west. Those areas over Central America and I would say over the Bay of Campeche might have a little bit better of a chance. And again, the wind shear over that area where the Bay of Campeche showers and thunderstorms are, that wind shear is fairly low, and then it's pretty strong as you move eastward across the Caribbean. So at this point, I don't expect anything to happen in the next 12 to 24 hours other than a lot of heavy rain across Central America. So let's move on with some of the concerns that I have, especially going into the next couple of weeks. And one of those is how the water temperatures have really started to climb right here along the northern Gulf Coast. You see some of those water temperatures 30, 31, even getting up to 32 degrees Celsius. So you're anywhere between 86 and 90 degrees when it comes to your surface temperatures. And those numbers have really shot up over the last couple of weeks. And you can see that in that particular area, those water temperatures are way above average from where they should be during the latter part of June. Now, there's also some cooler areas when it comes to above or below normal, but all of those water temperatures that you're seeing in the Atlantic basin where we would normally see tropical development, definitely warm enough to sustain any tropical activity. And another thing is the tropical cyclone heat potential, which is just adding a little fuel to the fire where you have the surface temperatures at 80 degrees, but where you got these red shades in this area and that area, the water temperature at 80 degrees goes very deep below the surface. So if you get a tropical system that wants to track its way, particularly over in this area, you could get some intensification pretty quickly as it taps into some of that high heat content. So the GFS really doesn't show a whole lot over the next several days, but I kind of want to point out a trend that I'm finding in the models, not just the GFS, but also the Euro too. And this is moving, I know. So I just want you to pay attention as we get into the 4th of July there and beyond. So July 5th is day 10. So I'll let it reset here. And what you're going to start to see as we get into this is July the 1st right here, and you start to see more of the moisture building there along the Gulf Coast. Possibility of an upper trough and kind of a front that would be sliding in there. So outside of that, I don't really see anything coming across in this direction or heading across the Caribbean looking at the GFS nor on the euro. Again, I'm focusing a little bit more of attention here as we get to the end of the month and the early part of June, as you see a little bit more moisture and maybe what would look like a bit of a trough kind of developing there over the eastern half of the country. And the Canadian is kind of doing the same thing there. As we look at the areas down to the south going through the next several days, you really don't have a whole lot that happens out there. But as you get into the 4th of July weekend, there's that rain, that frontal boundary that appears there. And the icon even kind of shows that a little bit as it moves off toward the west as well. So I wanted to show you the upper level patterns that we have here. And I'm going to start with the Euro model. And you can see there's there's that trough that is there across portions of the Great Lakes, and that pushes into the eastern part of Canada. And you see that kind of dips down a little bit. And then if you look over the Bahamas, where you get more of that red color, that's where it's showing the heights or the pressures at 500 millibars are considerably higher than what they would be. And when you have a ridge of high pressure aloft, a lot of times you have lower wind shear. So let's real quick check some of the wind shear, and you can see over the northern Gulf, you have low wind shear at about that time. Again, this is the 4th of July, and then we kind of push that farther. You see a larger area of lower wind shear over the Gulf there going into July 5th and July 6th. So the Euro model as well as the GFS at that particular time is showing some slightly lower wind shear in that particular area, and then also talking about some above normal heights. So you might be looking at a little more of a ridge of high pressure induced by that trough that's going to be moving across the eastern half of the country. So if anything's going to be happening over the next couple of weeks, the only thing that I can really see that's within this particular model is if you're going to get some development, it would be right in there or possibly right in there. And I would put that somewhere after the 4th of July. So we've got a ways to go. So we'll just kind of watch that and see how the models kind of play out over the next couple of weeks or so. But I really don't expect anything over the Atlantic, the Caribbean. We'll watch that area over the Bay of Campeche, and then farther down the road beyond the 4th of July, I'd be kind of watching those areas over the eastern Gulf or the far western portion of the Atlantic Ocean. One quick reminder again that we did have Tropical Storm Andrea that fired up on Wednesday, which was the 24th. So we were a couple of days late for the average first name storm when it comes to hurricane season. But over the past 20 years, I could only find 2 hurricane seasons where it started later than June the 24th. So we're actually a little bit later than what we've seen over the past 20 years. But again, we don't have anything out there right now. So this is the time to get yourself ready. Well, I hope you enjoy Let's Talk Tropics. I sure enjoy our daily visits. Like this video, subscribe to my channel, and turn on those notifications. Remember, you can hear my forecasts on Big 102.1, Planet Radio 106.7, and Freedom 95.1. Also, please follow my social media pages for updates in between or radar checks here and there. Those are located on Facebook and X, and thanks to everyone who's already subscribed to Acadiana Weather Today right here on YouTube. Hope to see you on Acadiana Weather Today tomorrow morning at 7 o'clock, and again right here at noon for Let's Talk Tropics. I'm Meteorologist Dave Baker. Have a great day.